God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to turn this over to Tim, and he'll explain that this is a special meeting of the vacancy board to appoint somebody. So, Tim, you want to explain to the audience?
Yeah, so just for purposes of clarification for everyone, this is a special meeting. As you may recall, the vacancy for the third supervisor position was created on September 5th when the supervisors voted to accept that resignation at that meeting. As a result, there was a vacancy. The supervisors had 30 days to fill that vacancy. That 30-day period elapsed. And at that point, it became the prerogative of the vacancy board, which is convening here today, to make the decision to appoint somebody to that position. That position, given the date of when the vacancy was created, with the acceptance of that resignation, that vacancy will exist and continue until the end of this year. So essentially, when somebody's elected in the November election, they will then take that position for that that position that's being filled with the vacancy. They'll take the beginning of next year. So I just wanted to clarify for everybody exactly procedurally where we're at and why we ended up here at this meeting today. So any questions from board members on that? Well, good. Procedurally?
Clear.
Okay. Hand it back to Chairman.
All right. Item number 4 on your agenda. I'm going to make a motion to appoint Supervisor Bob Maloy.
No. I have a point. I'd like to ask that since it's apparent to even a visually impaired individual that the purpose of appointing him as a temporary supervisor is to give him the roadmaster position. Now, I'd like to ask what kind of due diligence was done in screening him or any other individuals, and if you actually executed a review of other candidates. Or was that just somebody that got their resume, walked in here, and went to the front of the list, if there's a list at all?
Fred, first of all, you're out of order.
Okay.
Because Tim already explained the situation, and he asked if there's any questions, and nobody responded. And then when I make the motion,
Excuse me, he didn't ask
He just
the
did.
public.
He asked the board.
That crap.
does anybody have any questions? And then we will have public comment after this.
I have no questions with the procedural explanation. I had questions about the candidate and the process in which he was
2 months
selected.
ago or better, we addressed at a meeting, anybody interested in this position, please submit a letter that they're interested in this supervisor's position and attach their resume to it. And we got several requests.
And when you explored this, the selection process, did you do a matrix or something determining the qualifications and arrive at the best candidate?
Yes,
And that's part of the file?
it's in the files in Luann's office if you want it.
Okay.
We reviewed every resume, and we thought, I'm speaking for me, and I thought that that was the best resume. And this person will bring something to the township with what I read on the resume.
It just seems that it would make logical sense that since there's an election in 2 weeks, that whoever fills that position should be hired as roadmaster for familiarity with the system, familiarity with the equipment, and the routes you would have to plow in the summer when it snows. Is that up for consideration
It will be at the next meeting,
at 2:30?
yes.
Oh.
Now, there is a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I guess that comes to me. Okay, I want to preface my remarks a little bit before I vote. When the supervisors asked me to be on the vacancy board, I had no idea what I was getting into. As it turns out, there were a number of individuals, township people, that are interested in becoming supervisors, and I think that's good. I didn't know any of them, so it's kind of hard for me to vote. I did consider just dragging my feet a little bit and not voting. But at the same time, I realized the township only has 5 people right now to work with a couple months of inclement weather. Ron Keller, who was my supervisor on my road and plowed my road, is the one that quit. I guess the question that popped into my mind is, how's the township going to take care of my road in the next 2 months? You're a little bit saved in the fact that, granted, as Fred pointed out, that in another month, the people of this township are going to pick what they want to be the supervisor for the next 2 years. And that's the way it should be. But in the meantime, the township's shorthanded, and they need another guy, I think, to work with them. And so I second John's motion for Bob Maloy. And I'll tell you why, because Fred asked anybody. I didn't know any of them. Bob was the only one that came to me and told me why he wanted to be a supervisor. I never heard from any of the other guys that might have had an interest. So my vote was fairly easy. But understand, I do this with the thought that I think the township needs help for the next 2 months. There it be. I second the motion for Bob Maloy.
Wrong.
Having said that, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Does Mr. Maloy have any type of family relation to anybody on this board, first of all? Second of all, is there any type of pension that is involved in this 2 month that is going to cost the township taxpayers money to have a pension set up, to have health insurance set up, to have insurance for the vehicle set up, what have it? How much does this cost us as taxpayers? Because in the next 2 weeks, like Fred said, as we vote, whoever the alternative is, could come in, or whoever's being voted in could take into that spot right then and there, because they're going to come in anyhow and save the taxpayers money. So those are my 2 questions.
I have no idea.
Okay, and I understand that, Mr. Woodmer. I understand that you're the alternate. And I understand that with due respect. I do understand that. So I guess my question is to either you, Keith, or Mr. Tobai. I don't. That's my question, because the ultimate line is what does the pension kick in? Does the health insurance kick in? Do we pay extra money? Where's the money line? Where's the money at? And why can't the alternate come in, or the runner-up in the election? You're talking a 2-week time frame to cost us thousands.
Yeah, I can't.
And a
speak-
vote-in.
Yeah, I can't speak to the cost of it. I mean, I know that anybody who's in that position would be entitled to the compensation that's been approved for roadmasters. Once again, this particular meeting is just for appointing the supervisor vacancy. The meeting at 2:30 would be to subsequently appoint anybody to that roadmaster position. Whoever appointed to the roadmaster, so the compensation for the supervisor position is separate. I mean, it's a fixed amount, and there's no benefits that are tied to that position.
Gotcha.
The supervisor position. The roadmaster position, there are benefits, and there's a salary that's associated with that, and whoever is appointed to the roadmaster position would be entitled to receive those. Now, I don't know the specifics of, for example, the pension plan. If there's a period of time that has to, the person has to be in that position for a certain period of time before they're even eligible for it, or for the health insurance benefits. It's a good question. I can't answer that question for you. But the pension plan, the way that would work, even if they were available for day one, any pension benefit that would, there's a vesting issue there. So typically you have to work in that position for a certain period of time before it actually vests. And if you don't, then it doesn't vest. You don't get a pension benefit. If you don't have that position for long enough to vest, you just get a return of any contributions that were made to the pension on your behalf. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but that's my understanding of how that all plays out, given the uncertainties of you know, who's gonna be appointed to that position and how long they're gonna actually hold that position for.
My concern is, this guy's gonna be able to vote and he's a temporary. Right?
Mhm.
So they're gonna be able to make some decisions in here, and Keith's not gonna have a say-so, and it's gonna be just like it was before. He's gonna get overridden in everything he tries to do.
Whoever gets appointed is going to be a full
If it's temporary,
supervisor,
shouldn't have no voting with it.
is gonna
Shouldn't
be
be
a full
been
supervisor.
entitled to vote. That's a temporary position. So
Good
why would
point.
somebody come in here temporarily and be able to vote and overrule anything that anybody else wants to do? He's gonna side with John, you know that. And that's a big serious,
And the second class township code is the one that sets all that out. And that's the one that dictates, hey, whoever is appointed, regardless of for how long, they have all the.
Then it
rights
should be
that a
somebody that's
supervisor
impartial.
would have.
and that's not gonna be, this guy's not gonna be impartial.
He's related.
No, yeah, well, my first question was never answered. Is he related?
I don't know, I can't speak to.
Keith, is he related to you?
that.
No.
John?
I'm gonna answer that a little lengthy. I never knew this person.
Oh, come on,
I
give
met
me a
him
break.
when we went over the resumes. That's when I met him. If you read the resume, you'll see why I decided that.
Give me a break. You never
We're
met
not
the
gonna have to
guy.
hire somebody to plow.
Answer it.
This man knows how to plow.
I
So
mean,
does
bottom
half
line
the
is
people
he
in this
related
room.
to you?
Pardon?
Is he related to you?
No, he's not. I never knew the man until he turned in his resume.
So the people that's resumes that you received,
Yes,
I'm assuming that the resumes that were received all have references with them. All the resumes were reviewed, all the references were called, and all the driver's license were checked, correct?
yes.
I never got called. I turned the resume in.
We read the resumes.
You called all references?
Did we have to call references?
Well, as my supervisor, I would like to know that who is appointed is a valid person, John. Because Ron was my supervisor that took care of my area. I need to know that who's taking care of my area
He's qualified.
is a. Did
By
you?
whose standards? Yours?
I mean, I'm concerned about this.
Yeah.
I think it's getting out of order, Tim. We'll have public comment after this.
You can, if you wanna, well, not the second, the
We have a
Sunshine
motion
Act.
and a second on the floor.
Yes, the Sunshine Act provides that there needs to be public comment on any specific agenda items
Okay.
prior to a vote.
Okay.
That's what's required of the Sunshine.
Go ahead.
I got one more question. Being that somebody's gonna be driving and operating township equipment, that's commercial equipment, are they getting drug tested? And if no, I wanna know why. Because everybody that has a CDL that runs anybody's equipment has to be drug tested. That's insurance reasons. Are they gonna do it? You gonna drug test everybody? Well, I'd like to know that.
If we have to, we will.
No, you have to before the man gets behind the wheel. If he don't have a DOT physical, if he has a CDL and he don't have a drug test and he gets in a wreck, whose fault is it? Don't smile, John. I've been in trucks longer than you have, all my life.
The person has CDL.
I don't
now.
care if he has one. Does he have a drug test to operate township equipment?
In order to have the CDLs, you must.
No,
drug
you
test.
don't. That's a company thing. That is a company policy. They're required to have a physical with your DOT, with your CDL. That is law. The other parts comes with the insurance companies and the people that own the equipment. That's exactly right. I've been on too many jobs. I've been on jobs all my life, and people get drug tested. And that's when you get behind the wheel of a commercial vehicle. Look at Jimmy Bell, what he's going through right now because somebody that snuck through there and killed 3 people.
True.
Man's going to lose everything he owns by the time this is all said and done with. And he's going to drive, somebody's going to come in here without a drug test and drive township equipment.
Did Jimmy's driver have drug test?
Yeah, he had a drug test.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a drug test and he slid by it.
How do you do that?
Don't ask me, buddy. I don't do the tests.
Well, you said it's mandatory. And they have
It
to
is
do
mandatory. It's mandatory with a lot of insurance companies and the people that own the trucks. You don't get on a gas wall site without a drug test.
Correct.
Right.
You shouldn't be out on the road if you don't have one either.
Okay.
I think this can be easily put to bed by simply
Do
saying.
you know that there's certain people that are exempt from CDL?
There's nobody exempt from a CDL, sir.
Now, that's-
Nobody. Nobody.
I've been-
PennDOT's not exempt from a CDL. They advertise CDL drivers.
I've been a farmer all my life.
That exempts you from a CDL on a piece of a farm truck, not a township truck.
Now, you just told me nobody's exempt.
A piece of farm equipment's not a CDL vehicle.
Well, I was driving tractor trailers for my grain before some of these kids were born.
Fine and dandy, me too. I'm no spring chicken. I've been out here for a lot of years in a truck since about 1970.
So age is not a factor then.
No,
Good, thank you.
no, it's not. But there is requirements that go along with it.
Do
You have a CDL? Do you have your
you go
physical?
to drug test, Keith?
Yeah,
When?
I can't remember the last time. It's probably
Okay.
6 months ago. 6 months to
Oh.
a year probably since I've last been tested.
Wasn't that mandatory every year?
No, it's random.
Okay. But it was random at the township too.
No, it was random for CDL drivers.
Right.
Myself, Mark Kelly, Hotline.
So the
Yeah.
township should pass a resolution to have all
Yeah.
employees drug tested.
Yeah, so then that has to be how it is.
Not all of our employees are drug tested.
But
no.
we need a resolution that says that the employees, and supervisors or whatever need to have this drug testing, because as a resident, I'm concerned that there could be that possibility.
That's true.
Am I the only one in this room that's concerned about this?
No.
Oh, 'cause, is everybody back there okay? Okay, because I'm just asking. I mean,
Crystal, did you know PSATs is gonna drop the drug test?
I'm sorry, say it again?
They're gonna exempt townships from drug testing?
No, they're not.
Who
PSATs
said-
will.
That's not good.
Well, that's not good then.
Why would they do
Well,
something?
you have to contact them.
I think Crystal's concerns can be put to bed by saying, before you have a comprehensive drug testing policy, at least drug test on entrance into the,
That's fine with me. I can go right now.
Anybody that gets hired on with any trucking company goes in there for a drug test. That's why if they get 100 applications, when they mention drug test, they end up with 5 because everybody leaves. That's in any jobs you go to. They go in there and mention a drug test, and 9/10 of the people are gone. And that should be mandatory. That's a pre-hiring thing.
so you're willing to resolve that question by a pre-hire drug test for the individual in question?
Sure.
It goes to anybody that gets in these jobs.
Just as a point of order, any decisions regarding that position, and any requirements, prerequisites, anything like that would be deferred. Any action on that would be deferred until the 2:30 meeting. So once again, I mean, I don't want you to vote at this meeting, because that wasn't specifically advertised for here. You can discuss it, but it's not at this meeting procedurally before us. But if you wanted to
To the-
address
for
that,
the
it
road
would be
master.
at the 2:30 meeting.
Yes. Is that clear, everybody?
Yeah, but I have a question. Why can you not do this at one meeting? Why do you need 2 meetings, 2 separate meetings?
Well, you could do it at 2 separate meetings, but it would have to be 2 separate meetings because the vacancy board appoints the supervisor, but the board of supervisors appoints the
Roadmaster.
roadmaster.
Okay.
So it's 2 different bodies technically that
Okay.
are making those decisions.
And so why didn't we have these meetings back to back?
Well, with these ones, if they appoint somebody for the supervisor position, that person, before they could vote as a supervisor or take any action as a supervisor, has to get sworn in and everything. And so if you don't have somebody sworn in, they can't participate in a meeting.
So then at the meeting at 2:30, the appointed supervisor will be present and will also be able to vote himself roadmaster?
Well, presumably, whoever gets appointed, once again, would have the opportunity to be sworn in, and then could come to the 2:30 meeting. Depending on how that plays out, they could or couldn't vote. If the way that works under the second class township code and the state ethics act is that the supervisors vote naturally, because somebody's being appointed to another position where they could vote to appoint themselves to a position, they would naturally have to abstain initially. So it could be 2 to 1 abstention. If there's a split in the supervisors where they do or don't want to appoint somebody to that position, the second class township code provides that the third supervisor, even though they're voting to appoint themselves to that position, can vote on that to break that tie at that point.
Oh. Okay.
Unanswered was Crystal's question to Dick about relationships.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not related.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Business? Any business relationships?
No business.
Now, Mr. Widmer, I have one more question for you. Had any of the other candidates come to you?
No.
And no, if they would have, would you have considered any other one of them?
Absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
I didn't know any of I'm not even sure how many there are, but I wasn't going to vote for somebody I didn't know.
And, okay,
And
so,
he was the only one that came, and the one question I really wanted to be asked, but has he ever had experience in plowing? Because, as I said before, Horny Keller was the one that plowed my road.
mine
Ronnie's
also.
gone. Okay, well,
Mine
at
also.
least now we have a guy, 5, 6 guys, or 6 guys that we've had before, rather than 5. Plain and simple as that.
I understand that, and I completely respect that. Having said that, though, if you didn't see the other resumes and the other applicants,
Right?
there could have been guys well more qualified.
Absolutely.
Well more
Absolutely.
qualified.
I-
Just my personal opinion from a business
There
standpoint.
absolutely could have.
As I mean, I'm a hiring manager myself,
Right,
and I'm an engineer myself, and
well.
that's how I would take it. You know, I would have said to whoever approached me with this, hey, are there multiple candidates? Can I see the resumes? Can I see the references? Can I see the driver's license? Can I see this, this, and this? The referring documents, and I would have called references. I would have spoke to people. I would have went and had coffee with people, and I would have found out about this person's characteristics. I'd have found out about their job habits, their work preferences, and I'd have gone through each and every candidate, not just, oh, well, he came to me.
Well, that is true. So why didn't you all 3 do that?
Be fair to postpone the meeting and have it go over all the applications, interview everybody.
Agree.
And
Right.
then come
Agree.
back up
There
and
needs
make
to
a
be
decision.
something more done here, because I think just in that
Exactly
respect.
right.
Yeah, just from a
just seems
hiring
perfect
standpoint,
timing.
because I think there was not, and I respect your decision, Mr. Widmer, I really do, because I respect you as a person. I think that there needs to be more consideration into the others, because I feel like we're shortchanging those folks that didn't get the full chance. In my opinion.
Well,
Once again, my
You know
opinion.
what, I agree with that, to a point. My thinking was that the supervisors went over the resumes, that's how they based their vote. For me, I just believed the township needed the extra guy, and I believed that Bob could do it simply because he was the one that came to me and told me why he wanted to be a supervisor and what he could do. If the other guys would have come to me, I would have absolutely considered them just like I considered Bob, but they didn't. And I don't know if that means they didn't like me or for some odd reason or whatever, but for whatever reason, they didn't come to see me. And I think that was kind of their responsibility. If I was wanting to be a supervisor and I knew this was happening, wouldn't you go see the guy? Did they go to see the 2 township supervisors? I mean, if I was interested in being a township supervisor, I would go see both Keith and John and the vacancy board guy and say, hey, I want to be the supervisor, consider me. And I would have been glad to do that.
Well, I think that all the applicants should have been interviewed face to face.
Well, that's
That's
my
my
opinion.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you're gonna hire somebody and you got a whole pile of applications, you go through the applications, you interview everybody.
Yeah, I
You do
agree.
a one-on-one interview with
I
them.
agree.
You don't make a decision because Bobby Maloy wants to go in there and be a supervisor. These other guys might have been working, they might work, there's people like me, we work 12, 14 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week. And they don't, if they didn't know about it, how are they gonna come in to see people? I mean, that's not fair.
Yeah,
That's very unfair.
In response to Mr. Whitmer, in response to that, if say, for instance, I would have applied for it, which Lord knows I didn't, because I don't need all that, anyhow. Had I done it, would I have gone to Keith, Mr. Toby, or yourself? Probably not. You know why? Because I would have thought, hey, they're going to go through the resumes. They're going to look at each and everybody individually, and they're going to make the responsible choice. That's how the process goes for me, myself, and I. Like, whenever I get candidates, that's what I do. I go through each and every resume. I call each and every reference. I check their background, and then I make the decision. I don't expect that person to come to me and say, hey, did you see I gave you my resume, and I really, really need you to consider me. I don't do that in my business.
Well, I'm different than you.
Okay, and I respect that.
For me, resume's one thing, that's just a bunch of words. I wanna see the guy and I wanna talk to him.
Then you need
Respect
to
that.
do them all.
And then
you
that's
gotta
where the
interview
interview
everybody.
process comes in. Then that's when the interview process would come in. Yes, I agree.
That would be the people that's
sorry,
doing the
Keith.
hiring to interview.
Can
Not,
I talk a second before
Okay.
we take a vote? Or take any more comments?
Go ahead, Keith.
All right. I've known Bobby since, school, high school or whatever. I'm sure he can do the work, I'm certain of that. But of all the people that came in here, Bobby was the only one that didn't come and see me. I've never spoke to him. We never interviewed him, never checked references, nothing of the sort. Second thing that concerns me is if he doesn't win an election in November, come January, we're gonna have somebody brand new learning how to plow snow, not knowing a route or anything like that. That's my concern.
Okay, excuse me, I'm a little confused. So do you anticipate him running? Is he a Democrat, Mr. Maloy?
I couldn't tell you.
He's not on the ballot.
I understand that, but do you anticipate him also running for the position after
I
you?
would assume he would.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, neither was I.
Just to be clear,
No, I'm really
somebody's party
confused.
affiliation is not an appropriate
Yeah.
basis for making a decision on it.
Okay, well, I'm sorry,
I
but
just want, just to.
That
I
happens
just
all
want
the time.
you guys to know that you can't make a decision based on that, one way or the other.
right, but I mean, you anticipate him running for the position. Did he tell you that verbally?
No, like I said, I haven't talked to him.
Okay, but you anticipate he may be running on the,
I would assume if,
okay,
he wants the job now, I would assume he would run.
because I'm a little confused. This is a temporary position,
Well,
not the
To
position to fill the 2
position
years.
Between now and, January.
Okay, but he may be thinking he wants the temporary plus he wants the 2 years.
So,
I'm so
to
confused.
clarify, the township every year at the reorganization meeting has the meeting of the supervisors, and at that meeting, the supervisors appoint the roadmasters for that year.
Okay,
So, whatever the outcome is of the election in November, the board of supervisors that constitutes in January will meet, and then they'll make the decision with respect to the supervisors for 2020. So, anybody who's appointed to the roadmaster position presently,
Mhm.
to fill the vacancy in that roadmaster
Right.
position, would only serve as a roadmaster until, by that action, will
Mhm.
only serve until the reorganization meeting in January.
okay. Well, is it possible to hire a temporary employee who can do roadmaster's work and not appoint a
Bingo.
roadmaster right now?
We would have to look and see under the union contract whether that's permissible, but there's nothing that legally prohibits under the second class township code, there's nothing that prohibits them from hiring another employee or temporary.
Okay, so
employee.
the supervisors could choose that option, not to appoint
We'd
anyone.
have to look at
Okay.
I'm not aware of the language in the collective bargaining agreement with the road folks, but that ostensibly would be another option too.
What'd you say,
So they
Keith?
would have to be a union employee.
That's what I'm wondering is whether they would have to be a union employee, whether we're permitted to do.
hire them on a temporary, wouldn't have to be.
You've hired temporary before though, haven't you?
We've hired college kids for the summer,
It's right, they're not union.
Yeah,
but it's.
The number,
and
my
on
big,
contract, if you
maybe that would be the
look
best
at the
route to go.
contract, it's that's something you would have to check, because I'm pretty certain it's.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it
you have
is
to
an
hire-
interesting question, admittedly. I don't know the
Yeah.
answer to it without looking at the union contract.
And my big concern is you're putting somebody in there temporary that's gonna have the authority to vote. That's my big concern, and that is a big concern, because a lot of stuff can happen in 2 months when it comes to voting on things. And that is not fair to the taxpayers of the township, period. So by all rights, what needs to be done, these guys, everybody that put a resume in should be interviewed and then go after that. That's not fair just having, because one guy comes up to Mr. Woodmer and, well, he wants this job. There's people in this room want that job that'd be more than qualified to do it. And they need a job too. And that's being fair about it. They should have to interview every person that put an application in for it, and then make a decision, because you can't go on one person. Because one person come up to somebody, not wrong.
How many-
That's unfair as
how
unfair
many
can
people
be.
applied to the job?
Oh, I couldn't tell you exactly how many. There's probably maybe 8 resumes there.
Didn't you ever all?
I looked through them all.
You did.
Yes, I looked through, briefly looked through the resumes. I didn't go over them, and, I didn't talk to any references or,
Did you
anything
call any
like
of
that.
them?
They should have hired
Did you see any of them?
No, just the people that, like I said, brought them in,
To do it.
handed them to us, talked to me.
Did they
That's-
have to have CDLs to
Oh.
get this job?
You have to? No. As supervisor, no.
Yeah, because once again, just to clarify, this is for the supervisor position.
Not the roadmaster.
So anybody could be, I mean, not anybody, not anybody. There's no requirements for the supervisor position that the township supervisors could put in place, because, no, not legally at least. The roadmaster position is the one that they could put restrictions and requirements on for prerequisites for entry as a roadmaster.
So it's implicit in the way this is going, that the individual who gets chosen as supervisor is going to wind up de facto the roadmaster. Is there any compelling reason why that decision must be made today? Selection of a supervisor procedurally?
If that's a procedural question, I'm gonna answer that. The only thing is the vacancy board has 15 days from the 5th of October to fill that vacancy for the supervisor position. So that would only take it until the
30th, maybe?
20th
And what's today?
to fill
17th.
that.
Today's the 17th. So then why can't we just interview these people? Like say, okay, listen, we're going to set up interviews tomorrow. If you can make it, you can make it. If you can't, you can't. Interview them, call their references, be done with it, and then choose the best person, not just go on one whim.
A short list of one.
Or
You
hire
understand my
temporary.
concern. Hire a temporary, do something, because that it's a true concern of the folks in this room is the due diligence was not done here.
So maybe they should just hire a temporary.
Temporary,